Hi everyone, this is Sam, and this month we're going to make a code block gyro spinner. So if you've never worked with code blocks before, this is a whole new challenge and something that's new to TinkerCAD. They just started using code blocks within, I think, the past year or so. So this is a whole new thing, and it's really fun. It's also challenging too. So for those who never have coded before, this would definitely be a whole new experience. In the video, it is pretty long, but I try to slow it down as much as I can and make sure that you are able to understand the different codes and then how everything fits together and how it works with math. So code blocks is all about the math, and generally why they use code blocks for certain things is because to get very accurate details of certain of these, like especially the rings, if you want accurate rings, and then there's like and if I could take off this piece, but I'll show you. So this other one didn't print out right. So you can see here, like this is called a peg, and then you also need that there's going to be math to figure out the space between the pegs and the rings. And see if you could see it in here. So you see there's a little hole right there where that peg's supposed to go. So this is why code blocks is more ideal for something to create a fidget gyro spinner on, because then you can plug in different codes, and it would be a more accurate way of just putting it together. So this month is code blocks, and I want to continue to use the code blocks as we go. I won't do it for every month, but I will do it maybe every 3 months or so. The next one I do have is going to be an ornament for December, so keep a lookout for that. If you're someone that likes like a printout of it, I could print out the screenshot of all the code blocks. You can follow through that way if that's going to help you. I will happily do that for you. Just contact me, send me an email, and I will make this as helpful as possible so that you can gain the experience and you're not overwhelmed with a new challenge. With that being said, my virtual Zoom meet is going to be September 18th. That's a Sunday, 12 o'clock. If you are interested in joining me for that meet, please register for that in the library page so I know that you're interested, and then I will send you a link afterwards. If you would like to meet in person, if that's more helpful, and then we could sit down and work on it together. You could bring your own laptop, or if you want to log into the computers here, we can do that as well. And I will happily walk you through the code blocks as best I can, and hopefully you'll feel more comfortable that way. And like I said, it's not overwhelming. Anyway, I hope you have fun with this. Once you're done, please contact me, pick out a color, and I'll get a print for you. So this one is the space gray color. And then you'll get a little keychain with this as well, because I do have a little keyring at top. So this would be a great thing to have for school starting. So I hope you do take advantage of getting a free print and challenging yourself making a gyro spinner with code blocks. So once again, this is Sam. Enjoy TinkerCAD. Let's get started. This is what I see when I first open up TinkerCAD and log into my name. Now, before we always did 3D designs, we're going to actually click on this one, which is called code blocks. So you see, this is what I had done before with the gyro spinner, and this is the 4 rings one. But I'm not going to tinker this. I'm going to create a new code block, and this is what you should click on too. So this pops up, but I'm going to start out with new design for the gyro spinner. Okay, so this is what the screen looks like. This is like the work plane area. This is where we're going to be plugging in all the code onto this part of it. These are all the different shapes we can plug in, and then these are all the code blocks, essentially. So over here, this actually shows you like how it's going to look in the 3D setting. When you click on the play button, it actually will go through the whole code and get it set up in get the shape set up in this area. But we're going to start off with creating variables. So these are going to be like the parameters of how the code blocks is going to read everything and put your object together. So when you create a variable, it's going to help do the math correctly. It's like, in the way I see it, it's like when you have a recipe and you have all those different ingredients that you want to put together to create the recipe. This is what a variable is. So we're going to set up all the variables first so that we can easily go back and grab them and then plug them in so that we can create the gyro spinner a little easier. So I have create variable, and we're going to change the item name. So when number of rings, and I'm going to click OK. We're going to plug in some more. Okay, so we're going to keep adding more to this. So we have another item, rename variable, and as you see, we have all these added to the variables. And this one is going to be ring width. Okay, we're going to do another one. Plug it in as this one. Rename to height. Change this one. Grab another one. Rename to first ring width. Grab another one. Plugging this in, and I'm going to name this inner radius. And then this one, I'm going to rename this one to ring gap. And finally, this one is going to be renamed to rotation. These are all the variables we need to create the gyro spinner. Now I'm going to type in all the like ingredients amounts, so the amounts that we need to each variable. And we're going to start out with 3 rings, and you could change this in the future, but we're going to do 3 for this one. And I'll show you as we go. You can see how it plays out in the end. Ring width is going to be 3. Height will be 4. The first ring width will be 1.25. The inner radius will be 11.75. The ring gap is going to be at 2. And the rotation will be set to 0. Okay, so these are all the parameters of the variables that we created, and now we're going to move forward to creating like the math of all this, okay? So now we're going to need to do a little math with our parameters. These calculations are essential to simplifying the remaining code, allowing you to adjust the parameters to get different outcome. I simplify them all into 2-step calculations in order to try to simplify them. Order of operation matters to some of these, so be careful. If things are working right later, this is probably where the mistake is. You can come back here and make sure the equations are correct. We will be creating more variables to store results of these calculations, so drag out new variable blocks to make sure these are below your initial parameters. I actually messed this up at first. I actually put the blocks above it. That's why none of my shapes were working. So once again, we're going to go to create variable. Okay, so this one we're going to rename to ring size difference. Now these are going to help us do all the calculations we need. So we're going to drag out this piece, and we're going to look where we have the under here in data, and it says ring gap. So once you just ring gap, make sure see as I highlight it's green. Make sure the little 0 highlights too. And then we're going to drag this one out to ring width. So you see it's highlighting, that means they're locking in there. And now we're going to plug this in there. So this is all set up. So now we're going to create another variable. And this one is going to be called combined rings. So we want to get the ring size difference. So we're going to pull out this one. It's another piece to do the math correctly. Ring size difference. Multiply, so that's a multiply by the number of rings. And we're going to grab this, plug it in. So so when I pulled this out, I had to pull this back in. So I put this in there, and I'm going to subtract this by 1. Okay, so this was a 2-step calculation. And now I'm going to pull this in. So now you see that this means combined rings equals the ring size difference multiplied by a number of rings subtract by 1. All right, now I'm going to create another variable, so it's another math, and we're going to rename this to outer radius. And don't worry about capitals or non-capitals. I'm just putting that in there. So now we're going to grab this thing, and this is going to be combine rings in here, plus the first ring width, plus I have to do this, and there we go, plus the first ring width, plus the inner radius. Okay, got this all set up. Put that in there. Now create another variable, and this one is going to be called current width. Okay, so create a variable current width, and this is going to equal the outer radius. So we're just going to drag outer radius here, and then the last variable we're going to create is, make sure I got the name right, is the cone height. So we're going to rename this to cone height. Okay, we're going to grab out one of these, which is going to be the ring gap, plus, so that's already selected, 1.4. And then we're going to drag this in there. Now that we have all the variables done and the math inserted, we're going to start with creating the pegs and the cones. And those are the little pieces that help the gyro spinner spin. So if you have any confusion about that, that's what I mean by pegs and cones. So now we're going to go and create new object. So it's in the modify section, create new object. And then we're going to rename it as pegs. And now we're going to add the cone. So the cone is the peg, so I'm going to click on this and I'm going to drag it onto the plane. I'm adding the code block to the create new object. So now you want to open this arrow, and we're going to set up the size of the cone. The top radius will be 0.3. The bottom radius is going to be set to a calculation. So we're going to go down here and we're going to find this again, and we're going to plug it into the 10, and we're going to grab height here and divide it by 2. And this is going to flatten out the height so it's not pointy. And then we're going to set this height to cone height. So I'm looking for cone height, grabbing it and putting it here. And sides are going to remain the same. Now we're going to look for the move option. We're going to add it to there in the Z section. And this is going to be cone height. Whoop. It's a little tricky. Get all the controls together. Cone height, plug it in there, divide it by 2. Now we're going to add solid cylinder. Grab this. The radius will be cone height divided by 2. So we're going to go down here, grab this again, and make this cone height divided by 2. Add a move block. With a distance of negative 0.5 for the distance. And now we're going to grab a group block. So we're grouping this all together. So let me find the group. Here, create group. Now you can change the color. So if you want to change it to purple, we can. And then add a rotate block here. And we're going to rotate the x-axis by negative 90. And then we're going to just add the location, just put it in there. We're not going to change any of that. We're just going to keep it the same so that it stays relatively center here. Now I'm going to play this and you're going to see how this turns out. Okay, so up here, this is the variable for speed. Just move this so you can see all of this, what's going on, and we're going to hit play. So you can see it's going down the line of everything. All right. I'm gonna play that again so I think you could see a little easier. So let's create a new object. You see the top is cut off. That's where the cylinder is. Okay, and then it rotated that way. All right, and that's how you create a peg. So that's the beginning of everything. So it's a process. There's going to be a lot of repetitive motion to all this, so just be aware of that. But so far, if you got to this point and you're feeling a little confident about it, good job. I think the next step, we're going to create cone-shaped holes for the peg. So eventually, these are going to be on the outside of the rings. They're going to go into the other part of the ring that's going to give it that spinning effect. So that's what we're working on right now. So now we're going to create a new object, and this is going to be called holes. And we're going to add a cone to it. So let's move up to the cone, plug it in there. I'm opening up the menu with the arrow. I'm going to change the bottom radius to, make sure you have it on the right side. It's going to be height divided by 2. Now we're going to add another piece to it, so you might have to redo this a little bit. So I'm going to move this out actually. I'm going to make sure that the nesting portion goes in here first. So I'm going to just delete that. We're going to do this over again. So we're going to put the nesting portion there first. So it's doing it. So it's going to be divided by 2 plus 0.75. Okay, now I'm going to grab this all and then put it in there. So now we have it all put together. So I'm going to add a move block. We're going to do another nesting portion. So I'm going to grab this out here, and I'm going to put in cone height. And just so you know, when you hear it's combining, you'll hear like a, I'm trying to do it, a like clicking noise to show that it's like plugged together. So if you keep hearing the noise, that's good. That means it's doing what it needs to do. All right, anyway, so cone height plus 0.2, so plus 0.2 divided by 2. So I'm going to grab this, put it out here, try to make sure this is good. You know, I might have to put in divide by 2 first, because it probably needs an equation. And we're going to put that in the Z input. And now we're going to add a group block. And this is going to be a hole, okay? So remember, when we make holes, that means we want something to be cut out. So this portion right now is the hole, so we want to make sure that we have the, so this is solid, we want to make sure that this is selected as the clear. Okay, now we're going to rotate it. Grab this properly. So x-axis by -90 again. And then make sure that the location is inside of the pivot. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to run the simulation to make sure that everything's working properly. See, that's not right, because we want it to look, let's see if I can turn the camera. So see the cone, this is actually supposed to be like the same size over this, so something happened. I might have gotten the sizing mixed up, so let me make sure I have the whole correct, and you'll see the right way it's supposed to be. So let me double check my math. Oh, and now I see I gotta change the, see, top radius. So I did not put this in right. So top radius is supposed to be 0.35, bottom radius should be height divided by 2. Okay, and then this has to be cone height plus 0.1. So that's where I messed up right here. So dragging this out, I'm going to grab cone height plus 0.1. Now I'm going to put it in the height. Okay, so you see that's how it's supposed to look. Let me give it a shot and see if that helps, and you'll see what I mean, what it's supposed to look like. Perfect. Okay, so it's kind of hard to tell. Wish I could zoom in a little bit. I'm trying to show you what happened. Oh, here we go. Okay. So the whole purpose to do this was to create the hole, and you need to have a little bit of spacing between it. So this is what this portion of the hole is doing. It's just making, so this eventually is, it's like the drill outside of this, and this is going to be the piece. So this is creating that piece in the ring, which is going to be the hole that this purple piece, the peg, is going to sit in, and that's how it's going to spin. So that's why this needed to have been the way it was, so you can see overall how that hole is going to fit into the ring shape. And now as we go forward and make the rings, you can see that this is how overall it's going to work with everything. So after I went back and corrected everything, I know this is right, and just keep note of how this was. So I think this is part of the problem, and obviously I did not have the rest of this filled out. So you can see how going by and checking to make sure everything is filled out properly in the right order, that's the way it's helpful, and you can easily go back and change the sizing and how you want the calculations to be. Actually, this whole thing's going to be the keychain portion or the gyro-spinner itself. So we're going to work on this part right now, and we're going to create a new object. So I'm trying to drag this block out here, and we're going to call it Gyro-Spinner. Now we're going to add a tube. So this ultimately is the ring portion of it. We're going to connect this code block. I'm opening it up, and we're going to set the radius to, scroll down here to the light blue. We're going to look for outer radius. I'm going to drag this into there. The wall thickness is going to be the ring width, so drag this into there. And the height is going to just be this part. So we're dragging the height in there too. Sides, edge, and edge steps are fine. Now we're going to set. So we're going to grab the math portion, set item. We're going to change this to current width. Okay, I'm going to scroll this up so you can see a little bit. And we're going to change current width. Oh, so this is going to be outer radius minus the ring size difference. So I'm grabbing one of these. Outer radius minus, so subtract the ring size difference. I'm going to plug it in there. And then we're going to repeat this. So up in the, where it says control, you want to grab repeat. Add down here, and we're going to repeat it twice. We're going to add a copy of the object, so we're going back and modify, plug it in there, and we're going to add holes. So we're going to, so this whole portion is going to make the holes in the ring. So add copy of modified object, and we're going to look for holes. Here we go. Holes go in there. And make sure we don't want, we want the holes to be cut out of the ring, so we want to make sure that it is, just click on the gray stripes, which means it's a hole. And now we're going to find a move block. So we're going to move it. And then we want to make sure in the move, we want to change the Y to current width. So I'm grabbing the Y, grabbing current width, and put it in there. So these are going to make two holes in the ring, so that's why we're repeating it twice. And then we're going to rotate the second one. So this makes one, and then there's going to be another one that's going to rotate it. And rotate the XZZ by rotation. So I'm looking down here for rotation. Rotation. And then where it says from pivot, we're going to find the center one in there. Oh, I'm going to set the rotation. So set block, where is that? There we go, set item. I'm going to set the rotation to 0. And now we're going to create a group. So this is going to put everything together, and the groups are going to cut the holes out, and this is going to be the outer ring of it entirely. So we want to make sure that's solid. All right, now I'm going to just play this and see how it works. And you can adjust the speed if you want to quicken it. You see it's coming on down. Everything's highlighting as we go. So something is not right here. So I had to, so it made a hole twice in here. So it means I have to change the rotation. I skipped a step, so I have to change rotation. There we go, change rotation. Find rotation by 180 degrees, and that should spin everything around. So let's try this again. Okay, we'll go slow that down a little bit. You can see that it's making the cone, got the end going. It's making a second one. That's going to cut out the holes. So there's hole 1 there, second hole there, and then it moved over here. So now you can see that I have 2 holes. One right here, one right there. So that's how your gyro-spinner should look like at this point of the code blocks. Okay, so now we're gonna start creating the middle rings. So this is this piece we just did is the outer ring. So now we want to, okay, and then we want to look up here and control this is count with. So the from amount would be 2, and then number, and then we're gonna grab one of these control like one of these math blocks, bring it down here. We want to add number of rings, subtract by 1. And I'm going to take this, I'm going to plug it in here, and this is going to stay as 1. So we have count with I from 2 to number rings, subtract by 1 by 1. And now we're going to add another tube, so we're going to go all the way up, grab a tube, and we're going to plug it in here, extending this, and the radius is going to be, look for the data down here. We're going to look for current width. Wall thickness is going to be the ring width, and then height is going to be height. And then we're going to repeat this 2 times. Oh, not 23, 2. We're going to add a copy of the peg. So now that we're repeating it, we're going to add all the other data that we have. So this part's the ring, and then this part's like all the holes and pegs that we need cut out. So we're going to find pegs down here. Add pegs. Pegs are going to be solid. We're going to move the pegs to where we're going to mess with the rotations. So we're going to move it to current width, bring it into the y-axis. The rest of these are 0, and then we're going to get the rotate. Go back up here, grab rotate, put it down here, and this is going to be axis Z by rotation. So we're going to go down here and look for this rotation, plug it in, and then the pivot is going to be the center math block. So we added that in again, and then we're going to change rotation. So grab change here, rotation by 180 degrees, because that's where I messed up last time. And we're going to group these. So I'm going to create a group, make sure it's on the outside of the repeat, and this is going to be solid. You can change this to another color if you want to. And we're going to change rotation down here, rotation by 90, and then we're going to set current width to, I'm grabbing one of these again. Actually, I need to grab two of these. So current width to, so it's going to be ring gap plus ring width. And I'm going to make sure current width is here. Now we're going to put this in here, and then we're going to nest it in here. So this is going to be the first one it's going to do. Oh, I have to subtract this, so let me change it to subtract. So set current width. So current width is current width minus the ring gap plus the ring width. Okay. So this is all set down here. I'm going to play it, so it's going to play all the way from the beginning. It's going to take some time to see it pop up on the right. So you see it slowly building. There we go. You can start to see it highlighting here. See the second ring. So you see how I add the pegs on the outside, and it has them nested into the holes of that peg. So this is how it's supposed to look, and this is how the middle ring is supposed to be. So if you have this perfect, you're on the right track. Now we're going to move to part 2 of this. So what we have to do now, we have to create the holes to go into the middle ring so we can nest in the inner ring, right? So we're making 3 rings, and now we're going to work on making the holes for this ring. So now we're going to add a repeats block, and I'm going to add a repeat block in here. We're going to repeat this twice because we need 2 holes. And now we're going to add a copy of an object. So I'm plugging this into the repeat block, and I'm going to add the copy of the object, which is going to be the holes. Plug in here. Remember, we want that not solid, so we have to click on this. Move the holes to current width in the y-axis. Leave the X and Z alone, and then we're going to rotate around. Find my rotation. Rotate around the z-axis by rotation from the pivot, which is going to be the center location, and then we're going to change rotation by 180 degrees. And now we're going to create this group and bring this outside of the repeat block. Okay, and we're going to make sure that's solid, and let's try this. So you notice the holes they're on the opposite sides of the other pegs and holes. That's perfect. That's where it's supposed to be. So that's all good. We're ready to move on to the next step and make the inner ring. And this will be the last part of this particular section. So now we're going to add another tube. Add a tube. So let's set the radius to current width. Set the wall thickness to the first ring width. The height is going to be set to height. Now we're going to repeat this. So we're going to repeat block. Repeat it twice, of course, because we got to add the pegs. So these are going to be the pegs. And add a copy of the object, and that's going to be pegs. So let's scroll down, find the pegs, add the pegs, and then we're going to move the pegs to, we're going to set the Y as current width. Let's find current width. And then we're going to rotate around the z-axis. So make sure you change this axis z by rotation from the center pivot. And then we're going to change rotation by 180 degrees. I always have trouble with this one. I always think it's like up there. Change rotation by 180. And then we're going to create that as a group. So everything's collected, and let's play it. All right. So you see everything's all set. This is for the 3 rings. This is how it's going to look. If you have this, you saw everything set up perfectly. You have everything right. Now we're going to do the finishing touches, which will get rid of this extra data to really solidify the object, and then we're going to take it to make a cool design in TinkerCAD. Because find delete blocks. So I gotta delete object block, and I'm gonna add pegs to it, and then I gotta get another delete object block and add holes into it. I gotta get a move block. And then I'm going to grab one of these again. So, and then you want to add height divided by 2. Okay. And then we're going to plug that into the z-axis. Now I'm going to speed this up and I'm going to play it. Okay. So you see what it did? It deleted all that center information and we don't need any of those pieces. Now we're going to export this. So this is how you can move this into creating your own. Oh, they changed this to shape. We're going to create this to a shape. Okay, and now I would just name it as Gyro-Spinner. Save it. Don't worry about locking the size or anything because you definitely don't want to do that, just in case you want to change it. Oh, I should put 3 rings. I personally like the 4 rings better. I think it's more mobility, so if you want to add more rings, you can. I want to say maybe 5 might be the most. So you can add 10 and you'll see how it looks. So let me type in 10. You can see how crazy these can be. Okay, so this is a little ridiculous. This is going to be a really big gyro-spinner. So don't go any more than 5, I want to say. So let's type in 5. Let's play this and you'll see how it looks. Okay, so that's a good size. I'm going to change mine to 4. And even if you want to see how the different sizes work with your design in the middle, so you can always save it, always export it as a different shape. And for instance, I'll put this as Gyro Spinner 4 for 4 rings. Okay, I'm going to save this. Now we're going to go back to TinkerCAD up here. And remember, this all saves, so you can always go back to this. And now I'm going to go 3D Designs and create new design. Close out of that. Now we're going to look at basic shapes, and we're going to go up here in your creations. So you see so I have like 4 in here, but you see the 3 rings here, the 4 rings here, and because I like the 4 ring, I'm going to work in the 4 ring one. Don't worry about size. Oh, you could change the size to 60 by 60. And here, let's zoom in a little bit. I'm going to go to the top camera. So I want to look for just something to put in the middle. You could put your initials. You could put, if you want to put initials, you could put an object. I just put a star for mine. You could do hearts. You can even put in your own shape. But for me, I would, first of all, keep it as a flat shape. Don't put anything that's going to stick out so much, because then sometimes it might mess with the rings, like maybe it gets caught. Basically, you want to stick to a flat shape just to keep it from going too far, like just not spinning right for you. I think this diamond shape, in terms of if you want to use this, you can, but that might be the only one that you can use in terms of flat shape. If you want to use any of the letters, that would be a good idea. So if you want to put your initials, you could do like a T here and a D, B. I don't know if anyone's name is TBD, but you can do this as your center of your gyro spinner. Or if you want to draw your own shape, maybe there's a logo, you can always take this here and so I'm doing a terrible Batman logo. Okay, so you can do like a Batman logo, and I think if you just want to stick to basic shapes and you want to do a star, that's a good option too. Make sure too, when you are adding your shape, you want to have the side that's going to be right side up, I guess. Just making this smaller, getting this in here. So I'm just making sure that all the tips are added, or they're like all connected. I'm going to turn off the snap because it seems like the snap is moving it where I don't want to. And I'm just lining it up with the peg here. And I'm just going to move this down a little bit. So it's not going to be perfectly centered, but I'm trying my best to get it as centered as I can. But you do want to make sure that the whatever you put in here is just this height. So like I said, it's a 4, so I change this to 4 to match with the ring. And you just want to make sure like whatever's in here is connected. You don't want it floating in the middle because otherwise it's going to print separated from the gyro spinner. So that would defeat the purpose of having this spin around. And then I'm just going to pull a heart in here just for fun and have this go above the heart, above the star like this. So something simple like this is a good idea. Look and see what other flat objects there may be. Let's see. Fun and games. Let's see if there's anything. I mean, you can even put something on top of the star if it was flat. This is pretty flat. You might have to put the foam dart into the star a little more. Baseball bat might be. Snowflake would be a great idea if you like snowflakes and you want to put that in there. A little sword or a wand or even a guitar. So obviously, I would rotate this so that it's lying flat. Rotate it 90 degrees and then just bring it down, and not like this. You just want to make it smaller so that it fits in the star. So you see that's relatively flat. Let me delete the heart and you can see. So you see this is relatively flat. Maybe bring it down a little more. Looks like it's okay. So yes, this is relatively flat. It shouldn't get in the way of the rings when they spin. So this is a good one to use if you want to use like a guitar or anything that you can kind of put into another shape or object. That would be great. And then the final thing, you just want to add a tube for your spinner. Once again, just make sure this is like centered with the middle peg, so when you have everything right side up. So obviously if you put it, you don't want to put the tube over here because then everything will look sideways and that's just not going to look as great as you would hope it to be. So let's put it down here. Once again, I'm going to change the height to 4. And there we go. So that's a key. Oh, I'm going to move it over just a little bit. And then we'll make the wall thickness a little bit bigger. So I'm changing the wall thickness to 25. I'm having it. I don't want to bring the tube so far into the hole because then it'll print that way. So that will actually prevent it from spinning as well. So another thing you can do is you can just grab a cylinder piece and you could just group the tube and the cylinder piece, and then it will just cut out a little notch in there, and then you could just bring it down like this. And actually do it that way because then it would ensure that everything prints out the way it's supposed to, and then you don't have to worry about any pieces getting in the way. So that's all, folks. That's how you make the Fidget Gyro-Spinner. I hope you enjoy, and if you have any questions along the way, please contact me. I'll put my email on here. But other than that, have fun. So this is how it's all going to look. So I hope you have fun with this. Enjoy code block. Try some other TinkerCAD code blocks on here, and you can see what you can create and possibly print out in the future. So keep a lookout for more code blocks. If you enjoyed code blocks and you want to continue with it, then check out that one.